Let's talk about some other challenges some other people have, like perhaps President Putin in Russia. We already had the situation in Ukraine. Now he has a situation in Kazakhstan. What's your take on what's going on in Kazakhstan and how it may affect what's going on in Ukraine?
Yeah, good question. Kazakhstan had a lot of kindling, in some ways ready to go on fire. It might have been energy prices that were the trigger, but clearly it's now a broader-based protest. But almost like Ukraine 8-9 years ago, Vladimir Putin does not like sitting by when one of his authoritarian neighbors gets into trouble. The precedent of an authoritarian figure being chased out of power by a mob in a street is not one he's going to accept. So just like he pushed back against Ukraine after 2013, I think he's going to probably intervene in Kazakhstan. He's already begun that. He'll dress it up with a bit of other countries as a kind of stabilization. But I think he's going to act there. Meanwhile, you have the talks starting in 4 days over Ukraine. So I think it's sequential. I think he's going to focus on Kazakhstan, but it's a much smaller problem than Ukraine, in part because the leadership of Kazakhstan wants to work with Russia as opposed to the leadership in Ukraine opposes Putin. And I think Ukraine is a longer fuse. We'll see what happens with these talks, and we'll see what happens with what the United States and NATO are threatening.
Is our sense that President Putin has the resources to deal with multiple fronts? Because actually he intervened in Belarus, as I recall. Before that, we have Ukraine. He's got a position in Georgia, and now we've got Kazakhstan. At what point does he get stretched too thin?
It's a good question. These are other than Ukraine, these are relatively modest interventions. So the answer, I think, is yes, particularly they're largely military. His problem would be if he meets significant resistance in any or all of them. The one thing he's got to be wary about, David, are casualties. And to put it bluntly, body bags coming home. That's what ultimately helped undo the Soviet Union because of Afghanistan 30-odd years ago. And that is the scenario Vladimir Putin does not want to recreate. So I think that's the one constraint. And that's why he's most worried about Ukraine. He can take Ukraine, but holding Ukraine would likely be extraordinarily expensive.
As far as we know, Richard, quickly here at the end, to what extent is Vladimir Putin's position with respect to things like Kazakhstan and Ukraine informed by the price of oil and therefore the effect on his economy?
Well, it's a cash crop economy. He's really got a one-dimensional economy. So long as oil prices are pretty high, it gives him a luxury. It makes it easier for him to absorb sanctions. You could probably argue it the other way, David. If things got really bad, he might look for a distraction. But I think the bigger point is that higher oil prices give him a little bit of a cushion.